Calaroga Shark Media.
Happy Easter. I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I thought I'd try something new today since it's Easter. With people in holiday mode, the numbers will be down a little bit. So I'm like, all right, this will be a fun day to try something different. It's festival season down in Australia. The Melbourne Festival just starting to get in a full swing, and then the Sydney Festival will follow that up. The Australian ABC asked a bunch of comedians what other comedians they were into. So what today's going to be is me rattling off comedians I'd be stunned if you've heard of anybody I mentioned today. Of the entire list, there was only one comedian on the entire list that I was familiar with. So this is educational for me. I've pulled a lot of clips, so it's going to be me talking, then say a minute from everybody. I thought it might be interesting to learn about some new comedians. Couple observations as I put this together. So many comedians open with, hey, I'm from insert town you never heard of. Hey, I'm from Scalawaroga. Have you guys heard of it? They all do that same joke. It's very strange. And then they either slam Melbourne or Sydney. Also, as I pull these clips, I want to be fair to the comics. I'm pulling a minute or so, and usually their first minute. So if you're a listener to this podcast, you understand how comedy works and things ebb and flow. So it might not be a fair representation of their work, but I also don't want to play, 30-minute clips from people. Mel Buttle was working as a high school teacher in Brisbane when she made it to the Raw Comedy National Final in 2008. She was 2016. She didn't win, but she said, it felt like Christmas. I had my first flat white and ate at Pellegrini's. I was completely swept up in the magic of the comedy festival. I couldn't believe my eyes. It blew me away. Little old me, a mere mortal, was in the same sushi shop as David O'Doherty. Here is Mel Buttle at the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Note the local humor.
Melbourne, wowee, this is nice to be here, isn't it? Because I live in a place called Ipswich in Queensland, so woohoo! Yes, it's nice to be somewhere nice. If you haven't been to Ipswich in Queensland, it's a bit pov, right? It's a bit of a rat hole. Like, I don't know what your nearest rat hole is. Let's just, we'll say Sydney for now. There's no purebred dogs, those suburbs where everything's a Staffy Cross. Staffy Cross Kelpie, Staffy Cross Border Collie, Staffy Cross Labrador. Some of the kids are Staffy Cross. No, there's no purebred dogs. We can't afford them. And if you do see one, it's a German Shepherd. That's a police dog. Out of the way.
That was Mel Buttle, who says, I really love Wind Cuss. Whenever she's available, I ask her to open for me. She's dry as a bone, with a deadpan delivery that really allows her brilliant joke writing to shine through. She has a joke about Tina Arena that makes me chuckle to myself on a weekly basis. Here is that joke from the Melbourne Comedy Festival 2023.
All right, I'll go first, I guess. I think you've got to be careful what you say to people, right? Like some stuff really sticks, yeah? Like for me, when I was 15, someone said to me, she said, hey, you know Tina Arena? I said, yeah, I know Tina Arena. She said, well, Tina, not even her real name. Her real name, Pina. Pina Arena. If anyone out there is waiting for a punchline, it's Pina Arena.
Rhys Nicholson says, in terms of a lovely smorgasbord of new babies I feel professionally threatened by, Melbourne International Comedy Festival's Comedy Zone is always a sure thing. Here's Rhys Nicholson at the Sydney Comedy Festival.
It is so genuinely nice to be out and about doing things again. Because remember at the beginning of everything a few years ago, and let's not talk about it, but at the beginning of everything, I had friends, when the lockdown started, I had friends that really used that time. I don't think I've ever used time. I had friends that got really fit during the lockdowns, transformed their bodies. Me? No. I've been in a relationship with the same man for over a decade. At the beginning of the pandemic, we locked the doors and we started drinking like it was Jonestown. I've never given up with such abandon in my entire life. Like, what a thrill. I reckon for 6 to 9 months, the closest we came to any kind of exercise was we once tried to have sex under a weighted blanket. And it's the least anxious I've been during sex in ages.
Rhys endorses Luca Miller and says, I wouldn't really call him an up-and-coming anymore, but Luca Miller always needs more attention. His show this year has a wonderfully bonkers conceit. He's a good boy. Here is Luca Miller.
Did everyone have a good Christmas? It's pretty deep into the year for that question, for sure. Middle of April. I had a great Christmas. I went back to the town that I grew up in. I grew up in regional Victoria, a town called Echuca. Do you guys know Echuca? Yes, that's good. People always have some connection to it. A few weeks ago, a guy was like, I've been there. I was like, what'd you do there? He goes, I played paintball. And I don't know if anyone knows, but quite a good thing happened at the paintball place in Echuca a few years ago. So I was like, cool, man, when was that? When was the paintball? He's like, maybe about 5 years ago. I'm like, that's good. And it makes sense because 3 years ago, the guy who ran the paintball place in Echuca went to jail for selling meth. And he said, yeah, when I was there, he tried to sell me meth. Beautiful town, most intense paintball games in the state.
Nina Oyama says, I love being asked for recommendations because there are so many great up-and-coming comedians who deserve your attention and money. Now, here's Nina as I listen to... I'll tell you what I think afterwards.
Hey guys. Oh my God, I didn't expect so much applause. This is really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I love Sydney. I love living here. But before I moved to Sydney, I lived in Bathurst. Has anyone heard of Bathurst? All right. Yeah, Bathurst is it's famous for the car racing, like the Bathurst 1000 races, and less famous for the Bathurst 1000 racists. Right. Oh, I'm half Asian, by the way. That's why my face is weird. Yeah, my dad's Japanese, so he flew here, he blew here, and then I grew here. That's how it works.
I didn't want to poison your brain there. I feel like she's reciting her material rather than performing it. I'm not a performer. I feel like she's obviously everyone's memorized their act, but for example, I'm working off a coworker of mine used to call it script helper. I'm not totally reading to you. I'm looking at the words and I'm trying to talk them. I feel like she has memorized everything and is just reciting it, if that makes sense. Nina told the ABC, it's an incredible feeling to witness a new comedian's rise to fame, and an even better feeling when you get to smugly say, I saw them back in 2024 when they performed in a venue that's used as a corporate storeroom for the other 11 months of the year. I do that. Guilty. This is more common than you think, and to their credit, carpet rooms do make surprisingly good settings for comedy. Anyway, take a punt on any of these shows. They are well worth your while, and many are in actual proper venues. You've heard me say this before about comedy festivals. Like, if you want to see Chris Rock's great, but you can also see Chris Rock on Netflix. Go see somebody you haven't heard of. She recommends Alexandra Hudson. I like this clip a lot from the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Little bit about me. I was born sandwiched between my brother and my sister. So each year on our birthday, I call and thank them for the brain damage. You can laugh, they're not here. Yeah, so that'd make me a criplet. People always ask me what it's like being a triplet, but honestly, I've got more in common with my 96-year-old grandmother than I do my fellow triplets. Because me and my grandmother, we share a lot of the same ailments. Like, she has bunions and I have bunions. She uses a walker. I used to use a walker. She often pushes me around on her walker when I can't be bothered walking anymore. Yeah, we have a really great thing going. We sit back while everyone in our family does everything for us.
Next up, we have Zoe Coombs Moore. Here she is at the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And what I like is she comes right out and starts. No work in the audience, just grabs the mic, boom, and we're in.
So you know when you're on magic mushrooms? He knows. And, yeah, he knows. And you know that thing, right, that thing that happens, say you take the mushrooms at 8:45 and then 4.5 hours later, it's 8:46. What's up with that? That's what 2020 was like. My girlfriend and I moved to Melbourne at the beginning of 2020. It's weird because we've lived in Sydney for about 15 years, but somehow we've lived in Melbourne longer. So weird. And yes, I did say girlfriend, I am a lesbian. Best to clarify that early. It can be confusing, can't it? Like, is she a lesbian or just from the country? Both. Yeah, double whammy. I am very high up in my coven. You will.
Zoe recommends Lou Wall. Lou's been doing great stuff for years, and their show this year is the wrongest list of life-affirming dumb stuff you never know you needed, delivered via internet memes and musical comedy by an 8-foot-tall queer comic from Kuma. What more could you want? Also, I directed that one, so don't let it put you off. Unfortunately, there is no clip of Lou Wall available, but the show's called The Bisexual's Lament, and it'll be at the Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney comedy festivals. This next guy I like a lot. I did make an edit here because of an F-bomb, but boy, he's got presence. This is Dilruk Jayasinghe, I believe. Hope I got that right.
It's truly nice to be back on stage, back in Melbourne. I actually one of the few people that get to say it's nice to be back in Australia, because I'm one of the lucky people that just flew internationally. Yeah, I just got in from Perth, and it's just nice to be back on home soil. 2 years of a pandemic. 2 years ago, I was the last sort of international flight I took, and that was to South Africa to go into a jungle for the TV show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. But when I went in, they were going to change the name to, is he a celebrity? Should he be here? I had a small profile, right? And of course, they start kicking people off the show, and the bigger the profile you have, the longer you stay, because the audience picks up their phone, votes for the people they like, right? Now, I still knew that I was going to go all the way to the end, and that's not arrogance. I just know how the game works, because it's voted by the Aussie public that these days consists of so many immigrants. You think people from India, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan are voting for Runderbirch? It's like that meme, you know? Carols by candlelight, curries by candlelight.
Dilruk says there are two Brons that I'm in awe of. Bron Lewis has only been doing comedy for a handful of years, but her command of the stage and skills would make you think she's a seasoned veteran who's been doing stand-up for decades. And the joke writing in Bron Wind Cuss' show last year made my own material feel like an open micers. We heard Bron Wind Cuss earlier. Here's Bron Lewis at the Melbourne Festival in 2023. Lot of buzz on her, and she is the one comic I had heard of before I put this together. Note, I did take out a short phrase of her material here because of an F-bomb.
Hello. God, it's good to be out. I am living with a bloke at the moment who doesn't speak English. I know this is very unpopular to say, but it's really annoying. I mean, he has only just turned 2. You've been here your whole life, you know? Assimilate, you dumb baby, you know? We're trying to teach him how to speak English, we are. We're teaching him words he needs to know to survive. You know, because we do want him to survive. He's a beautiful baby. We love him so much, but mostly we want him to survive because we don't want to start again. You know, we're teaching words he needs to know to survive, like food. When he's hungry, he says food. Great, nailed it. When he's thirsty, we try and teach him how to say water. It's having a hard time with that one because we pronounce it water. He pronounces it puta. And that's a bit funny because the cultured people in the room, we know that puta in Spanish means whore.
Love it. Back in a second. Will Anderson up next. This is a great clip. I had to make several edits for the F-bombs, but hopefully you get the gist here. Love this clip.
I try not to get mad at the Americans for making stuff up about our country because, let's be honest, I also make up stuff about our country. Particularly when I'm overseas, because people think I'm an expert in Australia just because I'm from here, but you don't know everything about here just because you're from here, and they want to know about stuff that's not my area of expertise. They don't ask me about the Dark Knight trilogy. They ask me about, like, koalas. I'm like, well, I can tell you about Doctor Who. They're like, no, koalas. That's all they want to know. And I've been spreading misinformation because I wasn't an expert, and I just was passing on what I'd heard. And this is my favourite thing I'd heard about koalas, was they sleep 18 to 22 hours a day, and the reason they sleep 18 to 22 hours a day is eucalyptus leaves only give them enough nutrition to be awake for the remaining hours, but the reason they like eucalyptus leaves is eucalyptus leaves get them high. And I was like, I love koalas, high five. I was like, that is the best evolutionary choice of all time. One day, one koala's looked at the other koala and gone, hey, Bill, you know what? After our next nap, we could get out of the tree and get some more nutritious thing, and then we could, work more during the day. And Bill's like, we've made our choice, mate. We sleep for 18 to 22 hours, and then we get high, and we hang out in a tree, and we're like, oh, my God, I'm fluffy. Why are you making trouble, mate? We are feeling this.
Will says, I think of all the shows I saw last year's Melbourne, Wind Cuss was my favorite, right? That's the third time Bronwyn's been mentioned. Such a relaxed style and great jokes. Lou Wall is definitely a new favorite. Their Facebook Marketplace piece is genius, and I'm looking forward to seeing a whole hour of them. Tom Walker's been around for a while now, but still one of the most inventive and surprising comedians on the scene. I think Prue Blake is definitely someone to watch. Great, smart jokes and a dry delivery. Here's Prue at Melbourne.
I've been thinking a lot about friendship recently. Friendship, it's meant to be the thing that makes your life better, right? But for me, it's just been very hard and difficult to maintain. And I know, I was never the popular girl in school. I was never that hot girl, the girl that kind of marched to the beat of her own drum. Everyone wanted to do what she was doing. Everyone wanted to wear what she was wearing. Everyone wanted to say what she was saying. She marched to that beat of her own drum, but the beat of her drum was the BPM that makes house music people go absolutely feral. She had it. Did your school have that girl? No? If your answer is no, then you were that girl. Yeah. And I'm thrilled that you came.
Tom Gleeson, clip next from Melbourne 2017. I had to make several edits for F-bombs here. The topic is the Wiggles.
I don't like their setup. I don't know if you know what they've done. They've rebooted it. I'll talk you through it. This is what they're doing now, right? Anthony, he's still there. The blue wiggle, he's still there, right? Then there's Simon, he's the red wiggle. He used to be an opera singer or something. He's like, hello, kids. Boom, 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 boom. You're creeping me out, Simon. You've got dead eyes, mate. Then there's Lockie. He's the purple wiggle. There's no Jeff anymore. Lockie. There's no wake up Jeff anymore. It's wake up Lockie. Doesn't even sound right, does it? Wake up, Lockie. Actually, stay asleep. Then there's Emma. There's a girl wiggle now. There's a girl wiggle now. What has this country come to? Wiggling is a man's job. You can't trust a woman with this.
Tom Gleeson tells us I've got one recommendation, and that is Jenny Tian. I saw her at the Adelaide Fringe. Saw a lot of shows there, maybe 20 shows, and maybe another 5 shows at the Perth Fringe. It was my favorite out of all of them. Jenny's fresh. She's young. She was talking about stuff that I don't think about, which I like. She's very funny, obviously. She's got a good story to tell. She had just gotten into stand-up when the pandemic started, so she had to put her plans on hold for a couple of years, and to pass the time, she did TikTok, and accidentally or on purpose became famous. So she's got this huge TikTok following. It was fascinating. When I saw her in Adelaide, the crowd was on board right from the top, and everybody seemed to know her from TikTok. They already liked her personality, but I think the thing that makes her a cut above is that she's a really good stand-up. I'm not on TikTok, and I understood the whole show. I really enjoyed it, so she's really good at including people. I liked this clip a lot. This is Jenny Tian at the Melbourne Festival in 2023. I also like, as I mentioned before, she gets right to it, grabs the mic, doesn't go like, hey, Melbourne, how we doing? Just boom, right into the material. That's how I like my comics to do it. I wanted to play a lot more from her, but she started to get a little dirty about boobs. So I had to cut this a little shorter than I wanted to, but I like this a lot.
Hello, you are such a beautiful audience, by the way. Not all audiences are so nice, right? I did a gig the other day, and there was actually someone that came up to me after the show, and they were like, your English is actually quite good. And I found that very condescending because it was my mum.
So I'd be curious what you thought of today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Something a little different. You got a lot more stand-up than you usually get. Let me know in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. I'd be curious at what you thought of today's show. All right, normal episode tomorrow. There's something a little different to break things up. Happy Easter, and I'll see you tomorrow.